So they basically map out 6 key areas where GenAI is already having a major impact.
It's a good framework, yeah.
Yeah. So let's walk through these, starting with
Okay.
content creation and destination platforms.
All right, so we're talking about AI writing scripts,
Whoa.
generating like entirely new content formats.
Actually, not just blog posts anymore.
For this, you were playing this recording of Notebook LM just running this podcast. So theoretically, this could be done by like a tool at very high quality, which is something we couldn't have imagined, let's say, 12 months ago.
It gave me a little bit of an existential crisis saying, how do I now justify, a lot of what we do over here, right?
We feel now it is possible to learn languages as you would learn from a human teacher, which means that you will learn speech first.
When you look at something like a Suno or maybe a novel AI, I think the boundary between saying, look, what is now a tool versus what is a destination starts to get blurred, right?
With a companion, there are no network effects, right? You are just interacting with AI and coming back.
बहुत अच्छा है क्या ठीक है is that okay super is that hello and welcome to SummitUp by Elevation Capital. Hello and welcome to SummitUp by Elevation Capital, a series where we dive deep into the emerging themes and opportunities in the Indian startup ecosystem. Today we are talking about GenAI, or more specifically around the consumer applications of GenAI. This is everything from AI chatbots to companion apps to content creation apps that have been mushrooming of late so much. And to talk about this, I have Amit and Manish with me from our consumer tech practice. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Vishy. Excited to be here.
Super. So, GenAI and specifically consumer applications of GenAI, right? They have gone from being a bit of a curiosity even, a year and a half ago to being completely ubiquitous. I think it's completely integrated into our lives and in my case, even a lot of our work streams, etc., right? I was reading this report that we published a couple of months ago, and what really stood out to me was the fact that India is the second largest market when it comes to penetration and adoption of these tools. And I thought maybe I was a bit of a cool cat using some of these fancy tools, but clearly that's not the case. I think it's very quickly ramped up, and a lot of us Indians are using it across a lot of our day-to-day life. What do you think, what are the broader spaces globally that are really emerging when it comes to consumer applications, and what's driving this ahead of the curve adoption by Indians?
Yeah, maybe I can open. So Vishy, I think there's no two ways about it. Look, GenAI has truly exploded into this scene. It's very real. It's here and now. In fact, I think we mentioned in this report or somewhere else, but we truly believe it's a GenAI world and, we're just living in it, right? In fact, I know before this, you were playing this recording of Notebook LM just running this podcast. So theoretically, this could be done by like a tool at very high quality, which is something we couldn't have imagined, let's say, 12 months ago, right? So the shift is very, very fast and it's very real. We think of GenAI as this next platform shift, right? We had this web to mobile era, and every decade or so there's this big platform shifts which happens. I think GenAI is obviously the next one, right? And probably at a scale which is unprecedented. And so all of us need to figure out, learn, adapt how this impacts around us. I think you spoke a little bit about areas. Look, we'll dive deeper into this, but some areas where we obviously think very exciting things are going to happen from a consumer standpoint. So a few we spoke about, but these straddle across a few. These are obviously content creation is going to get impacted in a big way. Learning, language learning is going to see a paradigm shift. Social and companionship more broadly is again going to be disrupted. And then travel and shopping. So those are probably the big buckets, we think of when we think about how the consumer landscape is going to change. And obviously you spoke about global a lot. I'll let maybe Manish speak a little bit about sort of globally what we're seeing, and then we'll uncover the India landscape more.
Absolutely. And which is just to, reiterate that same point, right? I think even for us, it was quite surprising when we looked at data across consumption of all major GenAI consumer apps and realized that India was second, if not the third largest country which was consuming this. And none of these apps are today localized to our geography, right? So I just feel like we are scratching the surface, and there's a lot more that can happen when you have localized products built for our audiences. If I take a step back and look at what's happening globally, right? Globally, at an application level, both the web and the mobile are evolving very differently. So on web, you are seeing a lot more traffic going towards content editing, content generation, and towards personal assistants. Versus on mobile, you are seeing a lot more traction going to companionship, to education, to some extent content editing, like companies like Remini, etc., are evolving the surface there, and lesser on content generation. So you are clearly seeing that on web there is probably a prosumer or an enterprise use case that's emerging, whereas on mobile you have much more consumer first applications coming out. And we feel that categories which could see large applications of GenAI, like travel or even around social or any of the spaces that Amit mentioned, haven't yet seen as much happening globally. So we do feel that we are still in the early beginnings of GenAI, and we feel like a lot more can get created there.
Awesome. Excellent. Maybe we should dive a little bit deeper into each of these broad spaces that you said are emerging and exciting for us. So maybe shifting focus to the content generation side of things on GenAI. You brought it up, right? Today morning, just before I left for home, I thought I'd just put in the report that we generated into Notebook LLM and create a podcast just as reference for something for me to listen to as I drive to here to structure our conversation. And the output that came out of it in 3 minutes was a 16-minute podcast that seems so high quality. It gave me a little bit of an existential crisis, saying, how do I now justify, a lot of what we do over here, right? So keeping that aside, how do you see this broad space sort of emerging, and specifically within India, what do you see are some of the opportunities that are coming up?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I think content is probably the most obvious one in terms of the spaces which will see massive disruption. Having said that, I also feel it's probably going to lead to very different business models being generated, and I'll elaborate why. I think content is a unique space, right? Like content at level one, you can imagine very, very new destinations opening up because we just have significantly lower cost of production of content. We have significantly more velocity, and we probably have content which is hyper personalized. So tomorrow, if you don't like this next episode of the show you were addicted to, it's not hard to imagine a world where next day the storyline forks into three, and different cohorts of users go into different areas, right? So generation or front consumer facing platforms obviously will end up looking very different. Now, whether that is inherited by existing platforms at scale or new things come up, I think that's the push and pull that continuously happens. Content, I feel, is interesting also because if you look at the content value chain, I think there are 2-3 different things, right? There are today a lot of front-facing platforms actually work with studios at scale, right? Netflix runs studios, Hotstar in India runs studios, and so on. Their workflows will be very different, right? So how does it impact that? I think that's almost another dimension of content. And thirdly, when you push it back even more, almost the prosumer side, right, will again look very different, which is where I would put something like a Notebook LM, right? Like is it a prosumer tool? Is it an enterprise tool? Is it a studio SaaS offering? It's very hard to. So content, I feel, and even we as a team are actually trying to, scope it out more. But I think content across the value chain will see massive shifts, and all buckets of this will be impacted just because GenAI is so deep in those workflows, and it's actually increasingly getting better at it.
So, what type of apps do you think are going to get created in this space, catering to both these segments that Amit spoke about?
So I think one category of apps will be those apps where the cost of production was so high that earlier it was not possible to create as much depth of library without burning a lot of cache, right? And one classic example is short form videos. Today there are companies like Reel Shorts, Dramabox in the US which have created this new category of short form video drama led apps, which have monetized through microtransactions and have hyperscaled in the last 6 to 9 months. Each of these apps today is 100 million plus in ARR and is growing at rapid clip. However, in this journey, these companies have actually burnt a lot of capital because all of them run the studios, as Amit said, and do incur a lot of the controlled content production costs that we see generally with studios. We believe that such content with GenAI will become now much low cost to produce. As also Amit said, it can now be even personalized to your tastes, and you could have multiple story arcs depending on user profiles. And that depth can now create much meaningful engagement as compared to even what these content studios earlier couldn't. And we believe that is one class of apps that will get created. We feel that is also a tailwind in India. This content category has shown affinity from a user base perspective when you look at it at audio. And we feel like short form video drama apps would be created in India, backed by sort of like Gen AI enabled studios. The second,
Actually, maybe an adjacent,
Yeah,
just on that, maybe an adjacent one in a very real company, something like a Dash Tune, right? It sits somewhere between, let's say, some of this format of storytelling has clearly worked well in audio.
yeah,
I think video is the other side of it, but they're obviously going after comics generated through AI at very high velocity. So actually, a very real example of somebody who's going deep into that journey.
yeah, yeah. And the second category of apps, and this is something we had not imagined if had we just looked at applications of Gen AI in general in content, but this ability to create new form of content at low cost will usually drive prosumers to your platform who are creating this content, and over time your platform itself could become a destination where this content is consumed. And this is happening, for example, in companies like Suno, which is an app which allows you to produce music with a short prompt given to you, and you can have like someone rapping to you in Hindi and creating a song out of it, right? And today we see a lot of creators flocking to this platform to create content, and suddenly that platform has now become like the new AI Spotify, right? Like people are going and consuming content there as well. Like I myself have spent hours listening to some of that content, and it is pretty fascinating that now this new mode of consumption has created a new universe of or a destination where people can come and consume. So that's another class of apps we feel could get built specifically for Indian audiences.
Super fascinating. Yeah, even I was playing around with Suno yesterday, and I was blown away by the fidelity of the audio and the songs that are getting created. Right? I think to a blind consumer, there is absolutely no way of telling whether this has been created by AI or by a musician, right?
Yeah.
And actually, when you look at something like a Suno or maybe a novel AI, I think that's where, if you go back to my earlier point, I think the boundary between saying, look, what is now a tool versus what is a destination starts to get blurred, right? Because theoretically, you would have said, hey, Suno is reinventing GarageBand. But it is a destination because I also end up creating
Consuming.
and listening there. And
Yes.
then, they have sharing flows built in. So
Yeah.
theoretically, my playlist runs there and so on. So I think this world is a very interesting world, right? And this line, that's what I meant. And Suno makes it very real that all the way from prosumer tools to destinations, I think these things will change very, very dynamically. So we also have to be very nimble to keep thinking about how this future is looking.
Absolutely. Shifting focus to learning overall as a space, something that I am deeply sort of interested in because two kids, both 7 years old, I'm both mortified and deeply interested in how do I co-opt AI into improving learning outcomes for them, but at the same time, I'm scared that very soon they'll start fooling me into saying into figuring out how to get AI to do their homework for them, right? So I'm caught in this in-between space. How do we see this overall space evolving, especially in a market like India, where education is such a big primary sort of need and driver?
Absolutely. I think learning will be one of the biggest areas which get disrupted. And we have now started seeing signs of it, right? Like look at what has happened with Chegg over the last 6 months. They've lost around 95% of their value, and they got massively disrupted by personal assistants like ChatGPT. And we feel like we are just scratching the surface there. Within learning, we feel there are two areas where companies will get built out. One is around just language learning in general, and second is around AI tutors which are personalized and give you more deeper support, which a human tutor was earlier either not able to do or not available to do. Coming to language learning, we feel now it is possible to learn languages as you would learn from a human teacher, which means that you will learn speech first rather than focusing on vocabulary and grammar, which is what apps like Duolingo have classically focused on. And that is a completely new paradigm of learning. And AI today has made it possible to access human like intelligence at really low cost, right? Which is giving you this ability to learn speech first. Companies like speak.com and Practica have now shown that this also monetizes quite well and leads to better learner engagement and outcomes. They have both of them have scaled towards tens of millions of revenue in a very short span of time, and both have created this speech first flow. Practica actually even has a AI sort of talking head that you can speak with, which just makes the interaction more real and more human-like. And we feel that's one area where, again, for Indian audiences, their accents, their way of learning, something more localized could get created, which either of these two apps are today not doing. Both of them have chosen other non-English speaking geographies as their sort of like home markets, but for India, no one is today building in a very hyper personalized manner. So we think that is one major axis of creation. I think the second one is AI tutors, and I'll let Amit talk a bit about them.
Yeah, I think just stepping back, I feel learning is very interesting in the Indian context. It's probably one of those areas where truly Indian things will need to get built because the complexity of our audience is truly diverse, right? We have people across socio and economic strata, so their needs, paying capacity, all of access to education is very different. Their requirements are very different. Somebody is almost looking for basic learning, somebody is looking for remedial, somebody is looking for really advanced learning. Languages and accents Manish spoke about, again, a very unique complexity of India. And then the last bit is, look, as Indians, I think we are still in that phase of our country where outcomes matter to us a lot more, right? So I don't think we have the luxury, or the vast majority of India still doesn't have the luxury of learning for the sake of learning. So you are still thinking, look, what does it help me do? Like, does it help me get better marks at school? Parents are thinking, what does it do for my child? Right? Later stage in your career, you're thinking, look, does it help me get that job? Does it help me crack that interview? And we actually feel like all of these nuances is what actually will separate the Indian gang of people building here from just global solutions, right? Because it's also one of those areas where we also frequently debate, hey, if a speak does this good enough, right? Like, how do you beat this app, right? They're very good. They're supported by OpenAI. They have early access to all the new models, right? But I think it's on these personalized journeys. It's on figuring out the nuance of users. It's on figuring out a target group. Are you going after somebody who's trying to crack a UPSC exam? Do you want to go after somebody who's trying to go for JE? Or do you want to go after, parents maybe who want their kids to do better through their, K-12 journey? So I think those are probably the exciting axes. And the interesting thing about education is all of those are big spend buckets in India, right? So I think when we think about learning, at least we feel this entire landscape will see very, very unique plays emerging. They will be very, very focused on, a specific cohort and what are you trying to get them to do, or what is the end outcome for them. The big learning or edtech over the last few years, and edtech has also gone through a cycle, is clearly outcomes matter. In a country like India, they really matter. So you can't get away by saying, hey, we've taught something, but we have no way to quantify it. So founders need to be very, very focused on that, and then build deeply personalized solutions which solve for that. So I would say that's a more of an overall framework to how we think about personalized learning, language, and all of these things playing out in the Indian context. Today, we are seeing a lot of action in education. We are seeing, we have SpeakX, we have Stimula, we have a bunch of people who are going after language, and we hope to see this broadening to more and more areas of learning at a very high velocity. And we're starting to see that action play out.
Yeah. And just to add on to this, like as Amit was saying, I think you can create AI tutors for various competitive exams today. And like imagine you have a on call, all the time assistant sort of teacher available for you for solving your doubts, and actually not just giving you the answer, but walking you towards getting to the right answer, right? And helping you fix your process and your journey to that answer evolution. And we feel like that is something that couldn't have been done earlier in any manner, right? And you would like need a 1,000 decision rule tree to get to that similar performance, which today AI does very naturally. The surprising part for us is that today there aren't as many teams building and pursuing these opportunities when it comes to AI tutors. And we feel that this is such an obvious opportunity, but why aren't there people innovating around it, right? And hence my advice to any founders or any people, any folks who are looking to start up in education would be to go after these competitive test exam revenue pools, because there are multiple companies which have shown that these revenue pools exist. They are deep enough, both online and offline. And maybe 5 years back, what was not true was that people are ready to pay for online services, which today has become very true. And this we see across our portfolio, where people are paying for content, for various services, whether it's through subscriptions, whether it's through microtransactions. And we feel today monetizability of these apps is a much smaller leap of faith to take. And if you can prove efficacy, you can build a large revenue outcome in these segments itself.
Fascinating. I think my takeaway from this is that I should probably try to figure out an AI tutor to learn Kannada.
Yeah.
Shifting focus to the next area of opportunity that we talk about, right, which is broadly around companionship apps. I think what is interesting in what we publish is that while globally that seems to be one of the leading use cases, it's still a little bit under-indexed in India. But I think it is something that we all know and realize that globally, and it is coming very soon to India, there is a little bit of this loneliness epidemic, especially amongst the youth. And while this is one category that, at arm's length seems like, it's a little funny, but I think there's a true sort of consumer need at a depth, right? So, what do we see are the drivers for these sort of apps? And specifically, how do you see the India opportunity play out for founders looking to build in this space?
Yeah. Look, I think social is truly the freaky one for a couple of reasons. One, I think history has told us time and over again that social media platforms at scale can have very, very meaningful impact on how humans and societies behave, right? And that is why Meta goes through its news cycles and ups and downs. Two, I think with evolution in AI, the distinction between when are you talking to a bot versus when are you talking to a human is truly blurring, right? And now in terms of being able to recreate almost every facet of human existence, right? To photos, to my life, to how I talk, to how I interact with my friends, right? So the reason I'm sharing some of this context is I think this is this world where you can truly imagine strange things playing out and the tech is there. I think again, we have to think much more deeply about what does it mean for people and humans and how they interact with, therefore, AI. And so today, as we look at social, we almost see this spectrum. There is this spectrum of an individual interacting with AI much more deeply. And I think you spoke about how loneliness and companionship, these are all epidemics, right? These are obvious things. I think with our life today, with fast pace, with the way society is evolving, people are facing that, right? And probably that's the reason why things like character AI or Candy not AI are seeing the strongest traction in this world, because they're very obvious one level away human needs of saying, can I have somebody to talk to? Can I be unfiltered with somebody? Can I express myself without being judged, and so on, right? So that's a very obvious understood need. Then there's that, as you push that spectrum, there's almost a world where humans and AI coexist. I think that starts to get into a tricky zone because it also has aspects of fake news, verification, all of that. So people will need to think, founders will need to think more thoughtfully about it, but obviously that paradigm will exist. And then when you push it all the way to the right, you can almost imagine this world where our AI personas are doing this conversation, right? And maybe we don't even know each other in real life. And that's the part where I feel it's like truly freaky. And what does it mean for the end user? I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But this is just sort of overall, as we see the world of social evolving, and what are the big shifts which are playing out. There's Butterfly in the US, where again AIs and humans are coexisting. It's very hard to say, is this a bot, is this a person, right? So many different sort of shifts playing around when you look at the world of social overall.
Yeah, and just to add on that, right, I think companions are that category of apps which, again, as with a companion, there are no network effects, right? You are just interacting with AI and coming back. There is this data moat that is there which allows the companions to get more and more personalized to your interactions, and over time, even at a population level, maybe become better in terms of the answers they are coming out. But as such, there are no network effects where an incremental user is actually interacting with another user and getting them out. Yet at the same time, they see all of this metrics which are very similar to large social apps which have network effects. So today at Character AI, average time spent per DAO is anywhere from 50 to 70 minutes. Their D30 retentions are similar to what a social app would look at like, and that is fascinating, and just shows that it is now possible to create really engaged, highly retentive apps using AI if you are going after solving this problem of loneliness and companionship. And today in India, as you were saying, there is no localized solution there, but we are the second largest consumer of sort of character AI. And that just shows that there is this deep need even today where people don't voice it out. All together in our society, there is this entire stigma around mental health.
Correct.
And I feel like that even adds more meaning to some of these apps as you think about their value.
But the India angle I feel here is, again, I think you have to really understand who the Indian consumer you're building for is, what part of their life are they solving for. Because, you know, the reason I started with social is freaky is because you can also go wrong in some of these very quickly, right? When somebody actually needs help and is calling out your app, at what point does this app flow intercept that with a real human? I think those are the nuances somebody will need to understand. And we at least look for founders with that depth of thoughtfulness, because again, in this world, I think technology will get commoditized. Can you have a very high quality bot which will have a human like conversation? Absolutely. Will that get democratized because the big guys will build LLMs to do that? They will probably get to 95% of what all of your custom training gets it to. But then do you understand the unique nuance of, hey, in India, I am building for, let's say, a student who faces a very unique pressure around exams. They can't talk to their parents because parents will worry that this person hasn't studied and is now freaking out. So what is the mental state of this person? How do I help them through this journey? At which point do I bring their real friends versus this character? At what point do I feel like this needs to be flagged in my system because somebody needs to intercept this conversation? There's potential self-harm that can happen here. I think that is like when we look at founders, when we talk to teams, that is the thoughtfulness which we feel will lead to like the winning play coming out here.
Absolutely. It seems like it is ripe with both opportunity, but also requires a lot of responsible thinking and building around this space. Okay. Moving on to travel planning. I think we've spoken about this in a past episode also, and that conversation largely revolved around itinerary planning using AI, etc., which is what was the one of those initial use cases that people are really excited about around ChatGPT, right? I think that space is really grown over the past year and a half, and we have seen some really interesting outcomes come out of it. Can we go a little bit deeper about what is it in this space that excites us, and who are some of the companies that are doing some awesome work here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think travel planning is the other use case which is really complex. Like usually it's a high consideration decision whenever you are going to travel. It's maybe even a 3-day trip to a week trip, where to stay, what experiences to go at, where to eat, how do you how do you plan both timings and mode of transport between various places that you are going to, especially if it's a week-long vacation. All of those are really high complex decisions which have to be taken at high velocity and with high reliability, which actually makes your travel vacation really stressful, right? And that we feel could get really automated with Gen AI. Today, if you look at any of the personal assistants out there, whether it's Gemini, whether it's ChatGPT, they will give you a good itinerary. But that is where they stop. They do not go one level deep into actually helping you complete that booking journey on their platform. Today, they will tell you what are good attractions to look at, but they will not go deeper into actually helping you book the experience at that place, right? So we feel like if there is a meta layer that is created, which let's say connects this itinerary creation and takes help of LLMs to create really personalized itineraries, but at the backend also partners with supply partners across OTAs, across experience providers like Get Your Guide, across even hotel providers, to give you the best rates and to actually give you real information to plan the budget and accordingly complete the booking experience. We feel that could be like a 10x experience towards what happens today, and actually could make this vacation a little bit less stressful versus what we end up doing today. We feel Mindtrip and Lela are two large companies globally which are trying to go after this problem statement. However, even there today, at least the way they have built out the interface, you do get redirected to a third-party OTA to complete the booking experience, right? And even today, it is not completely native. We feel like they will get there someday. But I think those are two great examples of companies doing it. And we feel like something like that in India could also get created just because of nuances of supply, given that it's a really price-conscious audience trying to actually optimize on price. and going deep into supply partnerships could be a moat as you think about building this out, because the UX layer at the front end will get commoditized, as Amit was saying. LLMs will come in and actually give you ability to do this really personalized for your audiences. But I think where your moat will lie will be around supply and your ability to show real time prices, times, availability, and deep integration with your supply partners.
I think the other thing that stood out for me specifically in this space is when we were doing our ideathon, right? I think a lot of teams came with really interesting takes on travel. I think a lot of them were solving for what you said, which is supply side integrations and completing the purchase. But I think a lot of it is also around personalization, truly trying to figure out what is it that, because even to the same destination, if I am going, whether I go with my wife or with my kids or with a bunch of boys, what I would want to do would be very different, right? So how do they sort of personalize that layer? I think is yet another big, massive unlock, which again a ChatGPT doesn't do, right? It gives you the highlights of these are the 5 things that people typically do on a 10-day trip to a certain destination. But how do you really personalize at an individual level? I think is
Yeah,
a
I
big
think
unlock.
look, when you compare, I think the unique nuance actually to all of what we're talking about in AI is there are horizontals which are very large and very powerful, and there are enough verticals which are starting to get built out. So as we look at founders and teams building out of India, you have to think about both. So personalization is an axis, I think, on which a travel specialist will beat the horizontal, because the chat GVT is unlikely to think about a very unique travel persona, your family architecture, what kind of trips you take and so on. And I think the axis Manish spoke about, which is saying now when you're in a travel specialist zone, then you have to win on supply. So fundamentally, then you have to say, look, I will provide a better experience, more seamless bookings, higher quality supply, integrated journeys. So I think, and this broad insight, I think, cuts across actually a lot of these spaces. Like first, figure out what do you beat the horizontal on. And then when you're a vertical specialist, now figure out the nuance of your user, your persona, who are you going after, where the India axis will really come into play. But like travel, I think it's going to be a similar dynamic.
Super interesting. The last area that we talk about is around assisted shopping, right? And I think all of us, I think, have over time sort of got with the preponderance of the number of brands and the number of platforms that are available to shop. I think are sort of feeling this slight amount of fatigue, saying even shopping platforms are becoming a little bit like your Instagram, where you keep endlessly doom scrolling looking for discovering that right brand for you or that right look, right? And I think AI integrated into these shopping journeys is going to be a big unlock, and that's a point of view, right? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, look, I think shopping is very interesting. I think shopping is actually seeing the convergence of 2 or 3 mega trends which are at play, and so one is just sort of shopping journeys for people are changing, right? They are getting to a zone where I'm getting inspired at a very different place. I may be getting inspired on Instagram because of something aspirational I saw, or on Pinterest, or on social somewhere. Two, the options that users have are just proliferating, which is what you're saying. Like there are just so many brands which are having very, very specific niche conversations with you. And now there's this dimension of Gen AI which says, hey, I can actually help manage noise in your life, because I understand that both of these things are actually generating noise. And so the most linear flow was I go to Amazon, I know I want an iPhone 16, I search, I sort on price, color, delivery date, and I get it. But that's like in bulk of these categories, apparel is an obvious one, home is an obvious one. These are just like inspiration first categories, but then also in others, right? I discovered like new gadgets nowadays on Instagram, and I'm like, I want this, right? And maybe Amazon is not the best place to get that, right? Because somebody is going deep into that. So in a lot of these categories, I think the true power of Gen AI is actually saying, look, there's a lot of noise in your life, both on how you're thinking about purchase decisions and to the options you have to buy. And I will help declutter your life. So when I think about shopping, I think fundamentally, this is the conversation Gen AI is happening. Now, we also have a portfolio company called Ali, right? For example, they're in the apparel space. Their intent to the customer is very straightforward, right? They're saying, look, when you think about apparel, when you think about how you buy fashion, it's a complex journey, right? Sometimes you are able to browse a catalog and figure it out, but a lot of times you're saying, hey, will this look good on me? I have this top, but what kind of skirt can I pair this with? What kind of accessory should I get? then there's this completely abstract conversation of saying, actually, I have to go to your house on a Sunday and, you're doing this now nice outdoorsy brunch. What should I wear? Like, let's start there. So I think the complexity of how users are thinking about shopping decisions, like earlier, there was no answer to this. So first you will do this, or you'll read some article or some blog somewhere. Now you can actually tell GenAI, right? Like, help me style up for this event I have to go through on Monday night. Help me style up for a office event where I want to be professional, but still, a little nice casual fun. Like, what should I wear? So apparel is an obvious one. Home, how should I style this? Help me visualize this, but then make it real. Help me do those journeys at the back. So I think those are the few meta things which are playing out in the overall world of commerce. And obviously, GenAI will sit at the center as it tries to bring all of this together.
Interesting. I think, to me, the biggest evidence that this is massive is the pivot that Perplexity seems to have made into shopping, right? So they seem to be going after the Amazon opportunity instead of the Google opportunity now. So clearly, I think there is a lot for AI to help just all of us shop and navigate and choose better. So I think we got a great flavor of all these spaces that builders out there could be thinking about and could be building, both from a global perspective, but specifically what seems to be the India opportunity and flavor there, right? To very early stage thinkers out there, tinkerers out there, builders out there who are looking to build something here, what would be your sort of advice, or what would be your heuristic or framework to looking at and evaluating early stage teams in this space?
Sounds good. I can start, and Amit, please feel free to add. So I think the first thing that we try to look at whenever you look at teams in consumer tech is just the focus and understanding of the Indian consumer that the team has, right? And is the team actually able to come up with insights that we couldn't even have thought of and actually are true, right? As you speak to consumers, is the first marker of a great consumer team is what we look at. And we feel that continues to be true even in consumer AI. We do feel that because you are building consumer AI, you need to have strong AI talent inside the team, which can actually help you leverage what has been built out there to cater to localized tastes and choices of Indian consumers. But we don't believe that that is the defining factor of that team. We feel like today the big 4 or 5 guys who are building LLMs will actually commoditize and give you powerful LLMs to work with, and will take care of your custom use cases as well, right? And hence we feel true innovation, as has been with AI, lies at the front end for the consumer. It lies in the consumer journey, in the way the app is architected, in the way it is monetized, and not at the back end in the way it is served, right? There is definitely some value, but we believe more value lies in the figuring out the appropriate user experience and journey versus building AI, right? So I think that's one thing again we would want teams to over-index on as we think about investing in companies. Lastly, what I would say is, we've discussed a lot of themes out in today's discussion, right? But again, these are themes which we as VCs are thinking very linearly about and in a very structured manner. We feel like there are a lot of these unknown businesses which are now enabled by AI, which we will truly be surprised of in the next 5 to 7 years, right? And hence, a word of advice for founders would be just to go out there, tinker with AI, get going, and get started with consumers, and then see how that ends up shaping up your entire product journey, right? And what you could end up with is something that none of us had even imagined would exist. So that would be the only other one.
Super.
Actually, it's a great point. I think the second one, I think finally it still comes down to basics when you're building for consumers, which is you have to be user obsessed, right? So Manish's point of saying, like, there are obviously unknowns out there, right? Like, we're not thinking of everything. We're not talking about everything. So be close to your user, actually discover, what is the pain in their life and how do you solve that? Is GenAI the center of what you're building? Is GenAI enabler for what you're building? Is GenAI giving you disproportionate operating leverage? It can play out in so many ways, right? And so my only advice would be to stay focused on the user. The complexity of building when you're building in hype cycles, which is where GenAI also is today, is don't do it for the sake of doing it, right? Like, think about the problem you're solving. Do you need the front end to be embellished? We spoke a lot today about saying, look, the complexity of India is that India is a deeply physical country, right? There are so many aspects to our physical infrastructure which are broken, and everything we spoke about, shopping, travel, learning, right? So many of these experiences, they will continue to be very, very phygital by design, right? So think about how do you solve those problems as well. And finally, it just comes down to saying, like, are you truly creating a 10x experience for the user? Whichever way you can Gen AI, you can leverage Gen AI, absolutely, but also not get lost in that, right? Because do visualize a world where the Gen AI tech itself will get commoditized, right? And then finally, what will differentiate you is true insights that you're working on, or true supply you've unlocked, or true front-end experiences you've discovered because you really imagined your user's life. Those are still going to be winners.
Awesome, super. I think that's a very clear sort of definition of what we're looking for. Thank you so much, guys. I think this was a super insightful conversation. I really enjoyed understanding a little bit better about our perspective about where do we see opportunities shape up. If you are an early stage builder building in the space or excited about the space, please reach out to us. You can reach out to the consumer tech team, Amit or Manish. We will link out to a couple of reports that we have published on this space in the YouTube section, so you can check that out to know a little bit more about what excites us. We'll also link out to some of the ideas that we saw when we did a recent ideathon to give you a flavor of what sort of stage or ideas we're looking at, right? So even if you're really early, we would be happy to talk to you guys. See you guys soon. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into, well, it's a topic that's exploding right now. Generative AI, or Gen AI, as the cool kids call it. But, and here's the twist, we're focusing on how it's blowing up in India's consumer app market.
Yeah.
We're not talking about some far-off future tech here.
Right.
This is happening right now in apps that people are using every single day.
Absolutely.
And get this, India is actually second only to the US when it comes to adopting these platforms.
It's pretty incredible, yeah.
So, to guide us through this this fascinating landscape,
Yeah.
we're turning to a report by Elevation Capital.
Oh, great choice.
Now, for those who don't know, they're like a prominent VC firm in India. So they're right in the thick of this whole Gen AI explosion.
Oh, they're definitely seeing it firsthand.
And their report, honestly, it reads like a treasure map to the Gen AI gold rush happening over there.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
So I guess first things first, what's the big deal about India and Gen AI? I mean, why should our listeners care about this specifically?
Okay, so here's the thing. India's not just passively using Gen AI.
Okay.
They're actually shaping its direction, which is huge.
Wow. Okay, I'm listening.
They're particularly into like assistant and content editing apps to the point where they have a greater than 10% global market share in most of these Gen AI app categories.
That's significant.
Oh, absolutely.
But what you're saying is Indian developers have a real chance to influence how Gen AI evolves globally.
Exactly. They're not just following trends, they're setting them.
I like that, setting the trends. So digging a bit deeper into this report,
Yeah.
one thing that kind of jumped out at me was this almost like a paradox.
Interesting.
So India, right, is known for its strong sense of community connection. But they're actually lagging behind in what the report calls companion apps.
Now that is interesting.
So hold on, companion apps,
Yeah.
you mean like those AI friends?
Yeah.
Virtual beings we're starting to see more of.
Exactly. Like think of it as digital companionship.
Okay, so I'm seeing the paradox now.
Yeah. So while India has a strong like 12% market share for assistant apps, their companion app market share is only about 4%.
Wow, so there's this disconnect.
It's a big gap, yeah.
So is it just a matter of time before they catch up, or is there something more to it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it represents a huge E, and I mean huge E, untapped opportunity.
Ooh. Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine, right, localized companion apps that really understand Indian culture and values. And then you pair that with, you know, clever monetization strategies.
Beyond just ads, I'm guessing.
Exactly. Think subscriptions, in-app purchases, you name it. It could be a goldmine.
So you're saying there's potential, but it needs to be done right.
That's the key, hitting that sweet spot.
But are there any potential downsides to this market?
Of course, there are always challenges.
Okay, like what?
Well, for one, striking that balance between personalization and privacy.
Oh, that's a big one these days.
Huge. And then also ensuring accessibility for a diverse population.
Right, with varying levels of tech literacy.
Exactly.
So those are challenges.
But, you know, they also present opportunities for innovation.
True, true. And let's not forget, right? India is not just a user base.
No, not at all.
We're talking about a young,
Very young.
tech-savvy population.
Yeah.
What, 50% under the age of 25?
Something like that, yeah.
And they're increasingly willing to pay for digital goods.
Mm-hmm. The market's there.
So connecting that back to the companion app gap,
Right.
maybe the right app just hasn't come along yet.
That's a very real possibility
To
there.
unlock that spending power,
Yeah.
there's definitely a hunger for, like, innovation and personalized experiences.
Huge hunger.
Okay, so this Elevation Capital report, they actually lay out this really cool visual landscape
I saw that, yeah.
of how GenAI is impacting different sectors in India.
It's a great visual, very helpful.
And get this, they use Midjourney, which is an AI art generator, to actually create the visuals for the report.
They're really going all in on this.
Talk about being deep in this, right?
Definitely walking the walk.
So they basically map out 6 key areas where GenAI is already having a major impact.
It's a good framework, yeah.
Yeah. So let's walk through these, starting with
Okay.
content creation and destination platforms.
All right, so we're talking about AI writing scripts,
Whoa.
generating like entirely new content formats.
This is not just blog posts anymore.
Nope, think interactive stories where the audience can influence the plot.
So instead of just passively consuming content,
Right.
users can actively participate in its creation.
That's the future of content. Yeah.
That's incredible. What's next on this landscape?
Well, language learning is another big one.
Makes sense.
Moving away from like rote memorization
Yeah, that's the old way.
and towards conversational AI tutors that can adapt to your accent and pace.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like having a personalized language coach in your pocket.
Especially in a country as linguistically diverse as India.
Exactly, it's a game changer.
Okay, what else is there?
So then you have AI-powered personal tutors.
Oh, wow.
These platforms can analyze your learning patterns.
Like how you learn best.
Exactly, and adjust the teaching approach on the fly.
That's amazing.
It's like having a tutor who knows exactly how you learn best.
That could be huge for education.
Absolutely, it has the potential to disrupt traditional models.
Okay, so we've got content creation, language learning, personalized tutoring.
Mm-hmm.
What about the social aspect? How's GenAI impacting, like, social connections?
That's where companionship and social media come in.
Right. Back to those AI friends.
Exactly, and it's becoming a global phenomenon.
We're seeing it everywhere.
And India, with its emphasis on community, could really take this to the next level.
It seems like there are both positive and, potentially negative aspects to this.
Definitely a double-edged sword.
What are your thoughts?
Well, the potential for AI to combat loneliness is huge.
Especially for younger generations who are digital natives.
Right, but there are also concerns about over-reliance on AI for social interaction.
And, the potential for misuse.
Always a risk with new technology.
So it's complex.
Very complex.
Okay, what other areas are on this landscape?
Travel planning and booking.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine AI crafting personalized itineraries based on your unique preferences.
So, like, way beyond those generic travel packages.
Exactly.
That would definitely make trip planning more enjoyable.
Much more.
And lastly, what about shopping?
Assisted shopping.
Okay.
Think AI stylists, smarter recommendation engines.
It'll help you find exactly what you need.
Exactly, going beyond simple keyword searches.
So it's a more curated, personalized experience.
That's the goal.
Okay, so we've got these 6 exciting areas where GenAI is making waves in India.
Content creation, language learning, personal tutoring, companionship, travel planning, and assisted shopping.
A lot to unpack there.
It's a lot, yeah.
But how is all of this actually playing out in the real world?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
I'm all ears.
Let's dive into some specifics. The report highlights some really interesting global examples of, GenAI apps that are already making a splash.
So, like, real companies doing real things.
Oh yeah, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Give us some examples, connect it back to what's happening in India.
Okay, so in the content creation space,
Mm-hmm.
there's Novel AI.
Okay, I've heard of them.
They focus on like AI-assisted authorship, storytelling, virtual companionship.
So, like, writing stories with AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wild. And they've got like 600,000 monthly active users on the web.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, with an average session time of 13 minutes.
Okay, so people are actually using it.
Oh yeah, big time.
What about in India? Anything similar?
You bet. Startups like Vedika,
It's Dika. Okay.
they're developing AI-powered tools for content creation, particularly in education and entertainment.
So India's right there alongside these global players.
Absolutely, even in these early stages.
That's impressive. What about language learning? Any cool examples there?
Oh, tons. There's ELSA, stands for English Language Speech Assistant.
Catchy name.
Right. They're all about personalized learning roadmaps, certifications, and a big emphasis on free-flowing conversation.
Sounds pretty advanced.
It is, and they have a whopping 4.4 million monthly active users on Android alone.
Whoa, that's massive. And India.
Keeping pace, companies like Doubtnut and Imbibe are using AI for personalized language learning.
Addressing that huge demand for English language skills.
Exactly. Crucial in a country with so much linguistic diversity.
Makes sense. Okay, what about personal tutors? Anything out there that's living up to the hype?
Definitely check out Question.ai.
Question.ai, okay.
Think of it as an AI-powered chatbot, but like a homework helper on steroids.
I like it.
And it's super popular. 3.3 million monthly active users on Android.
People are definitely using it.
Oh yeah.
What about in India?
Established education companies like Topper and Byju's are integrating AI into their platforms.
So they're not being left behind.
Not at all. They're embracing it.
Okay, this is all really cool, but going back to those companion apps.
Yeah, the ones where India has a smaller market share.
Right. Are there any global examples that are like really pushing the envelope?
Oh, for sure. There's Character AI.
Okay, what do they do?
Users can create their own AI characters and have conversations with them.
So like build your own AI friend.
Exactly. And their engagement numbers are crazy. 11.4 million monthly active users on Android.
Wow.
And an average session time of over an hour.
An hour chatting with AI. That's wild. What do you think is driving that?
I think it speaks to that human need for connection, for personalized interaction.
It's fascinating, right?
Well, definitely.
And so while India's companion app market is still small,
yeah, it's early days.
there's a huge opportunity there.
Oh yeah, for startups to develop culturally relevant AI companions.
It makes you wonder what those future AI companions might look like.
Interesting question.
Okay, moving on to travel planning. Are there any companies using AI to really personalize travel?
There's Mindtrip. They're an AI native platform for travel discovery and booking.
So not just flights and hotels.
No, they're all about personalization, AI-driven recommendations.
Makes sense. What about in India?
Startups like Ixigo and Tripoto are using AI for personalized itineraries and recommendations.
Tapping into that growing travel market. People want customized experiences.
They do.
All right, last but not least, assisted shopping. What's happening globally?
There's Daydream, an AI-based personalized shopping engine, very search-driven,
So it's helping people find what they want.
but in a personalized way.
And in India.
Major players like Flipkart and Myntra are integrating AI for personalized recommendations.
They've got a ton of data on customer preferences.
Oh yeah, a gold mine.
It's amazing to see how these global examples are mirrored by Indian startups.
It's happening in parallel.
India's really on the cusp of something big here.
Absolutely.
But you mentioned earlier that content and education are the hottest areas in India right now.
They are, yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a few things. India has a deep respect for knowledge and education.
Right.
So it's natural that GenAI would find early success there.
Makes sense.
But it's also about accessibility and affordability.
Okay, so it's making education more accessible.
Exactly, in a way that traditional methods just can't.
That's a really powerful point. And as internet access and smartphone adoption grow in India, we can expect these GenAI applications to reach even wider audiences.
Oh yeah, it's going to explode.
This is why I find this whole landscape so fascinating.
Me too, it's so dynamic.
It's not just about the technology, it's about the human stories,
Exactly.
the challenges it's addressing.
And the opportunities it's creating.
Absolutely. But with all this talk about India's potential, are there any risks or challenges we should be thinking about?
That's a great question, and it's important to be aware of the potential downsides.
Okay, like what?
Well, one risk is the widening of the digital divide.
Right, not everyone has equal access.
Exactly. So while GenAI can democratize access,
We need to make sure everyone benefits
absolutely, it's about responsible innovation, ethical considerations.
and creating an inclusive environment.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Another challenge is data privacy and security.
Oh, huge one.
As these applications get more personalized, the responsible handling of user data becomes even more critical.
Absolutely. It's a balancing act.
So the GenAI revolution comes with both potential and responsibilities.
Two sides of the same coin.
It's fascinating to see how India is navigating all of this.
It's a learning process for everyone.
You know, it feels like we've only just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
But one thing that really struck me about this report,
Okay.
it's not just analysis, it's like a call to action.
Interesting.
They're encouraging people to get involved,
To be part of this whole Gen AI ecosystem.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool, actually.
So this deep dive,
Yeah.
it wasn't just about us learning something new.
Right.
It was about maybe sparking ideas for our listeners.
Inspiring them.
Yeah, to become part of this Gen AI revolution in India,
I like that.
because it's happening.
It is, and India's at the forefront.
What do you make of that call to action?
I think it's a powerful statement.
Yeah,
It shows that they're not just waiting for things to happen.
they're being proactive.
Exactly. They're inviting participation
So it's not just about using the tech, it's about creating it.
and shaping it, making it their own.
I love that.
That entrepreneurial spirit combined with India's huge young population.
Right, 50% under 25.
It's like a hotbed for innovation.
Well, that's pretty exciting.
Oh, absolutely.
This is way bigger than just some cool apps.
It is. It's a potential paradigm shift.
In how technology is developed and used.
And India is right there leading the charge.
Okay, I'm inspired. What about you?
Definitely. And remember, content and education are strong right now. But other areas like companionship, travel, commerce, they're catching up fast.
It's all happening so quickly.
The pace of innovation is incredible.
All right, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
let's do a quick recap for our listeners, just to bring it all home.
Sounds good.
So, main takeaway, India is not just on the Gen AI bandwagon.
Nope.
They're driving the darn thing.
They are. Second only to the US in adoption.
And they're already shaping the technology.
Not just consuming it, but creating and innovating.
What I find so inspiring is it's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about how it's being used to solve problems, to create opportunities.
Across so many different sectors.
From education to entertainment, travel to commerce, companionship to personal growth.
Gen AI is everywhere in India.
And it's all happening with this, distinctly Indian flavor.
Incorporating local culture values.
This isn't just a copy of what's happening in Silicon Valley.
No, it's something unique.
Something powerful.
Emerging from the heart of India.
So, as we resurface from this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay, hit me.
What will your contribution be to this Gen AI revolution?
Ooh, good one.
Because whether you're a developer, an entrepreneur, a student, just someone who's curious,
There's a place for everyone.
this is bigger than just a tech shift.
It's a cultural and societal one.
It's about reimagining what's possible.
Pushing boundaries, using technology to create a better future.
And India, with its energy, its spirit,
And its commitment to progress.
is poised to lead the way.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into India's Gen AI revolution.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.
And keep diving deep.
See you then.